Steve Cooper, Rank Success, and this is another video to assist your momentum to get you getting some traction going through into 2021. And today's video is around evidence structure. So the last video I did, which was about reality of your situation, where are you now at the moment in terms of any evidence you have or might have, and whether you've started thinking about putting that together in writing or starting to practice and rehearse it verbally so that it comes out in the way that you want it to come out at your board opportunity or through your assessment process. And so structures are really important. Structuring any evidence you've got is just about giving it some flow, making it logical, and you understanding what it is you're saying and having some form or some order of saying it. And when people look perhaps through written applications, assessors, when they look to market, it makes it easier. It's a professional courtesy if you've written out your evidence in a way that helps them do that. Now, if you work in the Met and in other forces, they may suggest or they may request you to write out, lay out and structure your evidence in a certain way. And so that's not unusual, but it's done for those reasons to help people understand it so that you don't start writing or start meandering in an unstructured way, trying to say what it is you want to say without having given it some thought. So structures are just there to help you make sense, make some order of your evidence, because you go into lots of different jobs. But if someone asks you to sit down and explain what you did and how you did it and why you did it, it may be a little bit more difficult. And then when you say that's in an interview scenario or you're sat down trying to write things out, it can add a different element of difficulty to that. So just taking a step back, this is just about looking at some structures for your evidence that you can use. And one of the things that I'd just like to stress is it is really important, but there are a number of options that you can use. So even if your force asks you to use a particular structure, you're probably wise to follow the instructions for that, and you will have it explained to you. But there are a number of different options for structures, and that's what I wanted to cover and share with you in this video. Now, I know your time is precious. If you want to do a shortcut and just go straight through, you can download a digital guide from our website, ranksuccess.co.uk, and just hit the ground running. There's some really detailed examples of using structures to lay out in examples evidence for promotion at sergeant, inspector and chief inspector level. And so if your time is precious, you just want to shoot through, that's fine, you can go ahead and do that. Today is really just about sharing some of my thinking around it, because I've been working this week with people's applications, helping and supporting people to do exactly this, what I'm talking about. So the individuals that I've been working with this week have had to do an 800 word values statement, followed by 1500 words across 4 different competencies, CVF competencies, in writing, together with the application form and all the other little bits and bobs they want on an application form. An application process, anything you put in relation to writing, should be your best ever work, the best work you've ever done. So you've spent some time thinking about it, and that's where structures can come in. And you'll see the importance of them as we get through this little bit of video. So if I lay out some of them, PAR is one of the structures. So problem, action, result. That's a bare minimum. If you're laying out evidence in writing, and sometimes it transfers more often than not to verbal presentations as well, or giving your evidence verbally. Problem, the problem that you dealt with, just kind of put that at the forefront. Well, this was the problem that I was dealing with. These are the actions that I took, and that's really important, the actions. And this was the result, as a result of those actions, or as a result of what I did, or how I behaved. So that's a real minimum. So if you wanted an easy structure, and I quite like that one, I don't see the point in complicating anything. if you don't have to. So problem, action, result is a good one. And in my last video, when I was talking about reality, your reality check about what evidence you may or may not have to support your making a case for you being promoted, I alluded to PAR and the little free downloadable workbook to help you start putting your evidence together in a way that's meaningful. And you'll see in that downloadable workbook about frameworks that PAR is the structure that's used for that, just to help you initially start getting into this. So what was the problem you dealt with? What were the actions that you took, and what was the result, the outcome, if you like, of your actions? So PAR is one. There are others, STAR, which you'll find in interview books, SAW, Carly, Enamel. There are different structures you can use. They are just options for you. I'm going to go back and cover those in a minute, but they're just options for you. They're not laid out, they're not absolutes, but they're there to generate and to support your thinking and to try and find a model that works for you with your evidence. And don't think that you have to only find one that works for you. You may find two. You may find that blending one or more of these models together helps also. So don't feel that you need to follow everything absolutely, but they are very good for structuring promotion support, promotion evidence. So just rewinding back there a minute. We've covered PAR. STAR is just an elongated version of that. You'll find it in lots of websites around interviewing and laying out your evidence verbally for interviews and preparing. It's one of the more well-known ones, if you like. The way I'd encourage you to think about it is you're the star of the story. So situation is the first part of it. What was the situation that you were dealing with at the time? What was the task or the element or component of the part of that problem or that challenge that you were dealing with? So situation, task, actions. What are the actions that you took? So start thinking about laying those actions out verbally and in writing so that you understand what it was when you break it down into actions, what it was you did. Now that's really important because you get marked for your actions, and disproportionately so in the scoring structure. So that's why it's important for that. And then the R at the end of it is result. And you'll start to notice a pattern with many of the structures or the different structures or options you've got, is that they generally all include actions and result, because the actions are the parts that you generally get marked on, and you need to have a result linked to your actions in order for you to kind of give a complete response or answer. So STAR is another one. SAW, if you remember, I started talking about the Met, the Metropolitan Police. So if you're a Metropolitan officer watching this, they'll often prescribe or instruct you or require you to lay out your evidence and to start thinking about it using the mnemonic SAW. So that stands for situation, objective, actions and result. So what was the situation that you were dealing with, the policing situation in detail? So what was that? Think it through, get it into your mind. So, okay, what was your objective in amongst all that? What were you trying to achieve? And then you've got your actions again, and then you've got the results. So you'll see there's a definite pattern following through these models. And then what you've got is an alternative model. So some of the people, so I get to hear different people's thoughts and expressions and how they've blended things together. So another one is Carly. So that's Charlie, Alpha, Romeo, Lima, India, Carly. And that is, what was the challenge that you were facing at the time? What were the actions that you took? What was the result that you achieved? What was the learning that you experienced or identified or shared from that experience? And in future, what might you do differently? What could you do differently? So that's a model that's quite good. It serves as a structure for presenting your evidence, and it leaves a board, if you like. It leaves people forward focused. So in future, as a sergeant or as an inspector, I would look to do this. Okay. And another model is called Enamel, and I'm going to do a separate video about Enamel, and that's one where I've blended through some of these models and it's more of a conversational structure for evidence and delivering evidence that works quite well for inspectors, chief inspector level, because it starts broad, it goes in the middle, and it comes out wide. So the old hourglass type response, and Enamel is something I'll cover in a separate video. And then when you start thinking about it at inspector level, particularly, there's nothing wrong with you starting to think about it also as a sergeant. There are some other elements that are helpful to lay over your evidence, because sergeants through to chief inspectors are generally promoted or assessed, for promotion at CVF, competency and values framework level 2. Okay, so it has to be at that level, at the level of at level 2 of the CVF. But that's not enough. So when you're going through structuring your evidence and you're thinking through it and working through it, if you think about it, a sergeant's evidence can be at CVF level 2, as an inspector or chief inspector's level. Well, there's got to be some higher level somewhere built into that. It's got to be at the level of the rank that you're going for. So your evidence needs to support the level of the rank that you're going for. So if I'm reading through it, reading through examples, and if assessors are reading through it, they'll look for, well, look, is this at the level of the rank that they're going for, that the individual's aspiring to reach. So there's a couple of little things that I encourage people to think about with that in mind, and that is, once you've got it to CVF level 2 and you followed the descriptors and the behaviour guidance that you get given, there is also another filter or layer that you can consider. It's like another pair of specs or a lens that you can view your evidence through, and that is level, complexity and outcome. Lima, Charlie, Oscar. Is it at the level, as I've just alluded to? Is it complex? Is there a degree of complexity in your evidence, as you would expect to find in an inspector or chief inspector's evidence, that links to force aims, objectives, performance requirements, and wider kind of issues that are relevant to the rank that you're going for? And the Oscar bit is the outcome. So an outcome is like a result with muscles. So I'd expect your outcome to have a 2 or 3 or 4 points to it, whereas as a sergeant you could probably have a result that achieved a narrow result. As an inspector or chief inspector, I would expect that to be a little bit broader. So level, complexity and outcome is another element or ingredient, if you like, in your evidence. And using these structures, so PAR, STAR, SAW, Carly and Enamel, which I'm going to cover, are just options for you to think through. Now, if you do the work, and this is the difference between people getting through and if you don't, you start picking up that one model might work for you better, another model not so much. A model might work very well for you in presenting your evidence. So in the Met you have little choice. You should, and you're normally compelled to use the model SAW, certainly for your written evidence. And it's easy to think why that might be. It's because if you've got hundreds and hundreds of people going for promotion, there needs to be some degree of uniformity there in some respect, just to help people get through that paper sift and to get the numbers through to interview. But when you get through to interview, there's nothing compelling you to use a particular model, and that's where the depth and the breadth of your preparation is going to tell and show when you familiarised yourself with some of these models, just to help structure your evidence and your conversation. And that's really where my Enamel model comes in to think about. You certainly don't need to use all of it, but it's something you can think about working with and to structure a conversation, because that's what you'll be doing on a promotion board. And even if you're not, if you're doing it through a presentation or a briefing, you're effectively having a conversation with people. So start thinking about some options about how you can inform your conversation as well. So as I've said, if you want to kind of shoot forward through these videos, you can download a digital toolkit straight away from my site. I'm going to start remembering, so I'm trying to get everybody boosted, if you like, get some momentum going. RS Guides 20 is the code that will give you 20% off the digital guides, digital toolkits. So that's sergeants or inspector and chief inspectors digital toolkits. That'll get you 20% off any of the guides or the bundles. as I say, all of these things are just food for thought. It's for you to kind of play back this video if you want to and say, what did Steve say about this? What was it he said about that? I quite like the idea of that model, or I'm going to start experimenting with them, which is what you can do, and I'd encourage you to do that. And then to kind of apply and structure your own evidence. And if you haven't got a process coming up, if you haven't got one coming up, now's the time to get familiar with this stuff. Because if you open up a window, if a window opens up and there's only a fortnight to go, then you're probably preparing for it in a way that's not a pace that's comfortable for you. So use this as you want to use it. It's just food for thought to kind of challenge and respectfully provoke your thinking. And I shall be back with some more videos to keep you going over the next couple of months. I look forward to doing the next one. Until then, take care.